Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, happy noon, happy afternoon. Welcome to our webinar series. This is the second in the series. This is the importance of early bilingual education, specifically focusing on the infant group. My name is Jack, and I'll be the webinar host, JAC. And I work under CORE, which is Curriculum, Outreach, R for Resources, and E for Education. So we're part of the CORE group. So part of this outreach effort is to bring different resources, education, trainings, not just limiting to the California area. We know a lot of topics that we have very common struggles or needing for information. We see that there is a need and we want to continue to provide those resources. We always welcome ideas, new topics, new themes, areas for expansion. Please go ahead and send us an email. So I do send out a listserv. You'll see my contact information. Go ahead, contact me there. We welcome all of your ideas that you can think of. So we're thrilled to begin today. And we also have Laura T. Peterson online today. She's a colleague of mine. She also works under the outreach department. She's part of the early intervention education consultant role. So see how we're assigning early intervention? It's more about being involved instead of interrupting as if there were a problem. So it's early intervention. This is how we're assigning it to make sure everybody's included, all parts of the family, to provide resources for the infants to help them grow to become a whole child. So they can be perfectly capable citizens of the United States. So we also sign this word inclusion here. So before I proceed, we have Q&A. First, we will have the panelists that will start. We have the chat feature. We also have the Q&A feature. Chat is more about feelings, if you need technical assistance, but specific questions, if you could direct them into the Q&A section and type your questions there, it helps to make sure that we don't miss them. For chat, if you can, comments or feelings or maybe realizations that you have, you can go ahead and put those in chat. So let's go ahead and invite Laura T. Peterson on the line to go ahead and introduce yourself. Hi, LTP, how are you? Can you see me? Yes, we see you. Great, perfect. Well, welcome. I really appreciate everybody attending this webinar today. So this webinar will be a little bit different. I'm actually going to change. I'm not only going to be doing American Sign Language, I'm also going to be switching to spoken English. Reason being is that the parents themselves often are hearing. So I'm going to have a conversation with them in spoken English. So I just want to expand a little bit more about my role.
And I will switch into talking, as I said I would do. So I support here at the California School for the Deaf. I support all families in Northern California from San Luis Obispo up to the Oregon border. I help families kind of navigate the early start programs and the IFSP and the IEP and how to navigate all of that and understanding their parent rights. I also, one of the great things I get to do is connect families. So like, for example, I had a family last week who has a twin and sorry, I'm hearing Jack in the background, so it's distracting me. So who has twins, and one was hearing, one was deaf, and I was able to connect that family to another family who has twins, one deaf, one hearing, and is older, so they can kind of share their advice and tips on how to make that happen. So that's just one of the things that I do here in my job that I'm lucky enough to do. One of the other things I get to do is usually I host a family fun weekend, which is an annual event where families from all over can come together. And we have activities for the deaf and hard of hearing children and their siblings. We're hoping to have that on April 1st this weekend in person. Putting that out there. So the reason I hosted this panel was because I know from talking to many parents that it can be really challenging navigating the system on, you may be getting different
Laura,
information
if we
from
could
your
have you slow
audiologist,
down,
your
looks
speech
like,
language pathologist.
Laura, it looks like
Yep.
we need Juan needs you to slow down just a little
Oh,
bit with your
sorry,
speech.
Juan. Okay, this is being interpreted in Spanish. So I understand that parents are totally new and trying to figure out how they provide the best resources for their deaf child, and it can often be confusing. California was one of the first states to pass newborn hearing screening, and that was thanks to the deaf community, especially Sherry Farina, who passed legislation to make that happen with the goal that deaf children would have access to language earlier. However, that has not proven out to be so true because the medical community tends to have the first contact with families. And so we still have a huge issue with deaf and hard of hearing children having with language deprivation and not arriving at kindergarten with language ready skills. One of the other things, because that has not proven out to be what we thought it was when the newborn hearing screening, the deaf community again came in and passed SB 210, which requires deaf children between the ages of 0 to 5 to have their language milestones assessed every 6 months and make sure they are on track to be at kindergarten ready. And again, that was thanks to the hard work of Sherry Farina and Julie Ramsamario. So if you're a parent out there and you have a child between the ages of 0 to 5, your early start teacher, which is what we call Part C here in California, should be going over those language milestones with you regularly. So anyways, but it's way better to learn from the experiences of other parents, which is why I invited these other parents to kind of share their experiences. And I really hope you'll enjoy what they have to say. And as we do have Q&A, so hopefully we will have time at the end to answer your questions as well. So I'll go ahead and have the parents join us now. And all right, we're all here. All right, so if we want to go ahead and Celine, you want to start by introducing yourself and your family?
Yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Celine. My son is 7 years old. His name is Albie. This is his name sign, Albie. Albie, yes. And his hearing is unilateral hearing. In his case, he is fully hearing on one side and fully deaf on the other side. I will say his ASL level is intermediate. He prefers English. And he likes the outdoors. He likes camping and hiking, and he loves everything superheroes, dinosaurs, sharks, and he plays soccer. He's very active.
Great, thank you. John, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm John. My son is deaf and has progressive hearing. That means over time, he may hear less and less. Being deaf is an important part of our lives, but so is being 4 and awesome. My son loves to read books and cereal boxes, draw, play with trains and construction trucks. Outside, he likes to hike new places, and we're all over the Bay Area. Maybe he just likes the snacks that we bring. I don't know. We also like to bike and explore. Before school started last year, we would bike around 20 miles a week. So we went all over the place. Now that we have school, that means I have less dad time, and he's growing up fast. And my dad job gets harder too. So that means I need to fit in as much as I can before he becomes a teenager, and he'll ignore me.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Denise?
Hi, everybody. My name is Denise, and I am the mother of a 4.5-year-old deaf child. Her hearing levels are moderate, severe, downward sloping to severe. We use some medical intervention. She is bimodal, so she has one cochlear implant and one hearing aid. Her signing level is she's very high on the receptive end, working on the expressive language. She's been on campus. This is her first year on campus, but in the last 2 months being on campus, she's exploding in her expressive language skills. So it's been very awesome to watch. And our goal is just to give language. So to see her explode in that and be able to communicate has been a huge asset to our family. She has been bilingual since birth. I've taught her ASL and English as soon as she was identified in the newborn hearing screen. And outdoor activities, she loves to bike, play with her older sister who's hearing, and she loves to write and read.
Awesome. Awesome. Lorena, last but not least.
Yeah, I almost say the same thing. Well, my name is Lorena, and I'm the mom of Violeta Vargas. She's a 4-year-old with unilateral hearing loss. She used a soft Baja device, and our family has Violeta, but also a youngest child, 2 years old. His name is Joey. So one of Violeta's favorite things is share time with his little brother. They're really close. Joey doesn't have any hearing difference. And they both communicate, play together. Even Joy has learned a lot of the signage that Violeta use at school. And sometimes he uses to communicate as well. So we're a family that definitely believe that ASL is language that integrate everyone. We love to go outside, enjoy the days, run. She's very social. She's very like empathy, like she generates a lot of empathy with other childs, and that's everything that I have to say right now. Yeah.
Wonderful. Looks like we're going to switch interpreters. All right. So thank you all for being here and taking the time to share your journey with other families. So one of the things I talked about at the beginning was, parents are kind of stuck between, is this a medical issue? Is this an educational issue? So my first question is, do you believe being deaf or hard of hearing is a medical issue or an educational issue? What did you think when your child was first identified? Has this changed at all? And I think, John, we'll have you answer that first. So I think we're going to try and play with the spotlighting. Hopefully, Jack, you're spotlighting John and Roberto. Perfect.
So when my son was first born, he in the early screening, they said that he couldn't hear, and we didn't know that much. And we didn't know what he could hear until his ABR. Anyway, we still talked to him. We still made sure he saw our faces. He's still a great baby. We love him. So we figured out that he can hear some sound, and so in the beginning, it felt like a medical issue. And looking online, there's actually a lot of information that's incomplete, and it might not be right, and it might be misleading. So we had a lot to learn. Anyway, he hears sound, so we still tell stories using voice. He likes fun words. He understands sarcasm, and he uses his hearing aids quite a bit. He still gets tired sometimes, so we let him decide most of the time when he doesn't want them or if he wants them. And he's growing up fast, so we need to figure out how he can make a life for himself, and how he can make friends. We did enroll him in early learning daycare, which is hearing, and they were very open to helping him with hearing aids. But even then, he would end up in the back of the class sometimes, or he would tell us that the class was too loud. He made a lot of friends there who are hearing, but as he grew older, he was targeted by one child who would sneak up behind him and pull his hearing aids. So I mean, it was a big concern for us. And actually, since the beginning, we knew that these were difficulties of deaf children in mainstream environments. And there's a higher chance of falling behind or having social issues. We also looked at having him enroll in some highly rated private schools here. And in the first visit, the teacher at the school actually, she couldn't get past that he was wearing hearing aids. It felt like that she was just staying back. It was really strange. So at that point, we knew that a hearing school it's not the way to go for him. Now he's at the California School for the Deaf, and he's doing really great. He has a lot of friends, and I know I talk a lot about hearing, but actually he makes friends readily with deaf and hearing friends. So he's having a great time. At home, we still read them out loud, and he still has his own voice jokes, and he also has sign jokes, which is fun. His sign name he actually gave to himself. We gave him some suggestions. His early start teachers gave him some suggestions, and we let him pick. What we say to him is, "You do you." We still monitor his hearing quite often, every 3 months, since it is progressive, and he likes sound. But he's doing really well, and I guess educationally he's doing great.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Lorena, do you want to answer this next question?
Yeah,
Well?
with Violetta, what happened is we didn't know about her hearing condition until the moment when she was born. She was born with microtia, what means all the surrounded of the ear is not fully developed. So she doesn't have a conductive channel. And it's really uncertain for us what is behind the skin that we see from the exterior. And on the medical side, they say that until the age of between 7 and 9 years old is when they could really do a scanner and see what is behind. So her condition shows that her nerves work properly on both sides, but just one side has the channel. So she has 100% hearing that side, and the other one is just like a percentage, it's an estimation, but nothing that the medicals for sure can guarantee. So my first reaction, knowing that she had microtia, was like, oh my God, can she hear? And I was really freaked out, really scared. I had to wait like 3 days until get hearing tests for her. That ends like she could hear, but with the microtia, obviously we have to try other, like what will be next. I do think is an educational issue in the terms of parents and people having knowledge of what the deaf community is and how to try these medical conditions. Because even in my family was like, well, if she hears on one side, like at the end she has access to the hearing, why you don't take her to a regular school? She can hear. And it's like, no, you don't get the point. Like, it's not the same. What we have reading about microtia in particular is that in an environment when you have too much noise happening, will be hard for Violetta to identify where the source of the sound is coming from, and then create confusion in a school. She will be hard for her identify where to keep the attention if it's too much noise. Happens that in similar case that what John mentioned about William, sometimes when we're in a very loud or noisy environment, she is like, Mom, I don't want all this noise. So she gets bothered by that. So yeah, my really first step, like, and boundary at the same time that I had to create was with my own family. Tell them to stop trying to place Violetta like if she didn't have anything to be drive, because she does have something, but maybe build a more a stretched relation to understand the opportunity, because more than a barrier for us, get into the deaf community has been an opportunity for all of us to understand others and understand each other as well. Violetta, sometimes when she gets frustrated, she doesn't want to talk. She wants to use ASL to communicate how she feels about a situation. And I think has been also a great element for our youngest boy to communicate things that he doesn't know how to say, because he's still just 2 years old. So definitely signing has been a great tool for all of us, and hasn't stopped Violetta for learning Spanish and English and ASL. So totally a good element to develop all language skills and all the different variations that an individual can develop.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Lorena. All right. Just because of time, I'm going to move on to the next question. So the next question is, how has a bilingual ASL education impacted your child's language, their academic readiness, their social emotional wellness? Celine, do you want to take a try at this one? And let's see if Jack, yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so I'm actually realizing that our family's experience is very, very similar to Lorena's experience, where our family also said like, oh, you know, he's hearing on one side, so we don't see the issue. But yeah, in our case, I think the most important thing it gave us was communication, because when children are very young, they don't know how to speak. So ASL was definitely something that helped us out. And he has a very strong, my son has a very strong temperament. So when he's upset, he doesn't want to talk to us. So he signs. And when he doesn't know how to say something, he has 3 languages because our household is also trilingual. So that, I believe, gives him confidence, and it also allows us to support him better, see what he needs. And I think it's also made him more social. He likes to talk a lot, and I remember it was a surprise to him when he found out not everybody knew how to sign. He was surprised about that. He also thought that everybody knew Spanish, and he also thought that everybody was unilateral. He will ask everybody like, "Oh, which one's your hearing side, so I can talk to that side." So it was such a learning experience. We learned along with him, and we are still learning. And like I was saying, the same as Lorena, we also noticed that just because he has one hearing side, it doesn't mean that he's good. Up to this day, we still struggle with articulation. Because he cannot repeat what he doesn't hear. So ASL is definitely a tool to help your child communicate and succeed. And we are very happy that we were able to, learn and be part of the deaf community, and have all these resources that we could utilize to help our child.
So Celine, can you say a little bit about his education, like where he's been going to school and where he's at now?
Yeah, of course. He started at 18 months at California School for the Deaf in Fremont, and he went there up to 1st grade. After kindergarten, he expressed he wanted to go to a hearing school. And we wanted to support that because we believe he's capable of everything and anything he wants. So we gave him that opportunity. But our time at CSD was the best time. We wouldn't want, honestly, if it had been for me, I wouldn't have left. But I had to support my child. But CSD, it's amazing. We honestly feel like we had a family there, and I believe we still do have a family there. We made relationship with parents and teachers, and if you need anything, you just have to reach out and ask. We learned a lot about what it actually means to be deaf, because it's not just about not being able to hear. It's more than that. And we were so happy to have the support and all the resources and what we learned. So yeah, that was our experience at CSD.
Thank you. Denise, you want to answer this question as well?
Sure. Do you want me to just start or wait to be?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
We're not professionals at this, so.
So for us, having ASL Influence, being that we have an older child that's hearing, I taught her some ASL because I have a background in that from college, but not to the extent in which I'm teaching my deaf child. So it's been really interesting for our family to see the differences. So a fully bilingual education that our deaf child is experiencing through CSD and her early start program in San Jose versus a hearing child who had a little exposure. So the bilingual approach has severely impacted her interest and ability to read younger. So not only is she familiarized with seeing a word in English like any hearing child might be exposed to, but she can then see the letters, read the word in English, but then attribute a sign to it. So later on, when we come back, if it's a 3, 4, 5-letter word, she has a visual now too. So she can read her books in English or ASL, or we can just give her cues with a simple sign, and then she knows the word in English. And it supports her continuing on. It gives her a lot of confidence. And I think it's very impressive for her older sister to see how she's reading alongside her. So it's been a good bonding thing for the kids too. We were concerned about academic readiness prior to this. We live in San Jose, so our program here is not a bilingual program. But I knew that I wanted a fully bilingual ASL program for her, being that's what we taught in the house already. I wanted her to have a deaf role model or peers, things that we can't provide her here in our area or in our household. So that was a huge part of our academic decision, and getting her from her IFSP to her IEP. Being accepted into Fremont was a big milestone and step. But it can't really happen if you don't advocate for them, if you don't know what you want. So it depends on your family, but for our family, we needed this program to support her growth, being that we had already made medical decisions on her behalf, that we don't know that she wants to use devices in her future. We still wanted to provide language. So we made educational decisions for her. And again, like Celine said, we have a family at CSD and we don't feel like this is a negative decision. It's just giving her more choices for her future.
Love that. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I want to be able to answer questions in case we have questions. So my question to you parents is, let's let the interpreter switch. My question is, what advice, I mean, you guys have already given some great advice and shared your experiences. What advice would you give other parents, whether it's about language development, the IFSP process, the IEP process, transitioning to the IEP? What advice would you give other families? And John, you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. I guess my background, I have a lot of planning. So I always try to think 1 year ahead, how I wanted my child educated. We did consider mainstream, but when you consider mainstream, how do you make sure that your child is supported? If your child needs speech, how can you justify that he or she needs 30 minutes a week? One way was we studied and looked at what sounds were missing. And that's a very concrete way to justify to school districts or assessors. Now, if you want your child referred to a deaf school, a CSD, or somewhere else, how can you convince a bunch of or several hearing educators that your child is deaf and needs ASL? So you have to get past their biases, if there's any. Typically for a deaf person, you need an interpreter. Does your child know how to use an interpreter at 3 years old? So we thought this was unfair, but it turns out that he automatically used his interpreter about half the time in his assessment. So it was great, but we were also in the assessment and we made sure we wrote it down that he was able to use an interpreter right away, very easily. In the assessment, make sure the documentation is fair. Make sure that everything they write is correct. In your IFSP and IEP meetings, make your own notes so that someone else's notes don't express the wrong thing. About notes, one thing that I believe really helped us was my son's first language assessment, he had more signs than spoken words. And our educator, our family visitor, made note of this. And she was very detailed, and I believe these notes also helped us get referred to CSD. And she was great, and I don't know where we would be without her. So, and the last thing I would say is to take the initiative to work with other parents. They might have gone through something that you haven't done before. So working with them, you'll learn how to prepare for your IFSP or your IEP. One example is if documents get lost all the time, hand deliver the documents to the district office. If there are unreasonable rules about visiting programs or learning about what programs are available, you can always try to call the program yourself and figure out what's going on, and don't raise any flags. So I guess the thing with me is, if you're prepared, you're more likely to get the referral or the right services for your child.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Yeah, I just want to emphasize, you made such great points that if you have somebody assessing your child, they need to know the language that your child knows, whether it's Spanish, whether it's American Sign Language, in order to be able to do a proper assessment for the IFSP and IEP. Yeah, I think that I had another point, but I've lost it. It'll come back. Let's see, who wants to go next? Do you want Lorena? You want to?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So I think every family is different, as the same that every child is different, and things needs to be addressed accordingly. I think one important thing is really try to think what are really the family values that you want for your family. And try to think everything surrounded to kind of set that in stone, but at the same time be open before you take that clear decision to listen others, to listen other parents, to listen the medicals, to listen educators. I think as much information you can recollect, you can take a decision and really stick with that. I have faced meetings with doctors that really don't at the beginning say like, but why Violetta is still going to CSD? And because I'm so convinced that that's what we want be part of our family values, not just because she's deaf, it's also because I think for us as a family is very important to inculcate in our child the value of understand others and really resonate with the issues of others as well, and not criticize. And I come from a Latin family, and in Latin America, I love my culture, but in Latin America, we criticize a lot. And it's something that I just don't want to pass to my child just like that. Really should be a fundamental of the things that you say, not just to say it. And when you come from whatever culture, you have to decide you continue that path, or you're gonna step on the side and create a new path. And in some things, and kind of the reason in person to be here in the States and now in my country is be able to create that new path for my family. So I have faced, as I say, doctors that say like, why you? And at the end, it's funny because I'm so convinced of the arguments for taking the decisions that we have take for Violetta and her education and the way how we want her to grow. that at the end, when I explain everything, they're like, okay, I think you guys have considered every single aspect. So it's good. Like they're little battles that you have to face, but that deep analysis and conscious of what you want for them, and obviously listen the child. Like I always keep my daughter in consideration. Like recently, we just have a meeting with all the doctors. That is a group of 4 professionals to look into what will be the reconstruction of her ear, and just like the general discussion. And I'm like, Violetta, do you have any question? Like to me, it's very important, and it's all of the values. Like understand that is her body too, and even at the age of 4, you maybe start to create concepts about what you like, what you don't like, you know. So that's what I always take in consideration. I want to be a supportive parent. I don't want to be somebody that in positive, but I want to be somebody realistic also, and that accepts and incorporate others, and very, yeah, like loving family.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So much. There's a comment here just saying how, you know, you parents have just made such intentional decisions about, you know, how to navigate this, which is really, really something that is to be applauded. Celine, do you want to add a couple? We have a couple more minutes. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that always do your research, get informed. That is literally here, knowledge is power. Always make sure you know. Many times I've come into IEP meetings and I have to let whoever made a wrong comment or a wrong assumption, let them know how things are, because I was informed and I did my research. And be strong about your decisions. Follow your child. I think that's one of the most important things you can do. They will guide you. If they want to communicate with you in ASL, then, you know, follow them. They will tell you. So yeah, just those 3 things.
Perfect. Thank you. Denise, you want to add something?
So I would just say there's no one right way. As you can see, our kids are all successful due to strong advocating and decision making on their behalf, but it's truly just giving access to language, whether that is ASL, English, Spanish, Vietnamese, any language. Just help them develop and be happy. I think the best thing you could do is offer communication in your household, and whatever educational path that takes you down is fine. But meet other families. Just the 4 of us here have had very different experiences. We've all ended up in a similar place right now, but like Celine's expressed, her son wanted to go to a different educational program. And so we might be faced with those decisions in our futures too. Get deaf and hard of hearing role models, have them meet teens, adults, their future selves, and see how successful they are, because being deaf is not a limitation. It's just a new avenue. We still do struggle with family, just as Selena and Lorena had shared, that their family says, oh, but they can hear. Our daughter is fully clear in her English spoken language because of her hearing aid and her cochlear implant. She's mastered spoken English, but we want her to also have that same level of support in her ASL and bilingual education and future. So she will always be able to talk to anybody she wants to. She too doesn't realize not everyone knows ASL. So even in our like regular hearing environment, going out to the store, if she sees another child, she walks up to them and signs. And then I just encourage her, that was great, but why don't you try in English too? So they're very smart. They know what's happening. Just get involved. whether that's making your own decisions or asking your child what they would like to do. Just get involved and learn more.
Thank you, Denise. There's a specific question kind of for you about whether you drive your daughter every day to Fremont from San Jose.
Yes, we do. That was actually something that we weren't sure of. My husband and I both work, and our older one is in school in San Jose. But we did not want to put her in a transportation program. We felt more comfortable being that she's so young to drive her ourselves. The commute is not as dreadful as you feel it might be. It's literally 30 minutes each way. You get to listen to an audiobook or some new music on your drive, and it's so worth it to see how happy she is every day. And every morning she's asking, is it a school day today? And we disappoint her on the weekends, but she loves it. So we don't even think about it anymore.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. I think I'm going to just answer some of these questions. Maybe Jack, if we can have all the parents on the screen. If that's going to work, people will still be able to see the interpreter. If you're using the interpreter, you can maybe, if you want the interpreter to be bigger, you can spotlight the interpreter. All right. One thing I want to point out is all these, one person was asking, what kind of counseling or advice did these parents have? And one of the things I want to say is all these parents were able to talk to deaf adults and deaf professionals. Most of you, because you were living in the Fremont area and your early start teacher, your home visitor teacher was deaf. I know for Denise, you sought that out and found that. And that is supposed to be part of the national standards for early intervention with deaf and hard of hearing children, is that parents of deaf and hard of hearing children have access to deaf adults, because there is just wisdom there that you can see these parents have learned from. So let's see, let me see the other, there's a lot of questions about assessments, and we can maybe send an email about that. That is a whole other webinar about what assessments you use for this age, and it's very valid. So I will try to answer that offline. Let's see. I'm trying to look at these questions. Oh, there's a question about the sign intervention. Jack used the sign intervention, which is like involvement, the sign for involvement. I've also seen the sign this way, which is like an opportunity to capture, that early opportunity to be involved. So you can use early involvement, whichever, or intervention, however you want to do that. So those are some signs we use. And one question, has anybody experienced having their child have a delay because of being bilingual or trilingual? Does anyone want to answer that? Celine, and then Lorena.
Yeah, so we are actually experiencing that right now. I was just, I sent an email to Laura telling her that I might be late because I was in an IEP meeting this morning.
This morning.
Yeah, he was being assessed, and he does have a delay. Not a learning disability or anything like that. It's just he has so much language that it's hard for him to sometimes, catch up, because to him, if he knows how to say it in Spanish or ASL or English, it's the same thing to him. He doesn't really separate languages right now. But he's getting there. It's not, I don't see it as a negative thing, because I think that once he learns to separate the languages and, learns a little bit more about why he has three languages going on, I think he'll get there, and I can see good things for him. I don't see it as a negative thing at all.
Thank you. Lorena?
Yeah, in the case of Violeta, her first language was ASL combined with Spanish because I was 100% dedicated to her. So first she did more Spanish, definitely more than anything else, and ASL. Then when pandemic happened was around the IEP meeting for her, and my husband does not speak Spanish, so he was speaking a lot English. Right now, we're at the point that she can switch from one to another so quickly. Like at home, she's like, Mom, I'm gonna talk my dad some words in your language. And she does that to him. And she's like, but he can understand some. And she started to realize that not everyone signs, but she has really clear that school, everyone signs. This week, my voice got affected, and for 2 days, I couldn't really speak. And she was signing to me all the time with no issue. So on her case, it's like really surprised me all the time because she's so good. I didn't know, I just realized this week how good she is doing on sign language, because with me, again, here at home, is just a little bit that we use ASL, but she does it all the time at school. And with my parents, she switched to Spanish because they don't ASL or not English. And she's like fluent, and all the assessments shows that she has higher level for her age. So.
Right, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, you know, I understand there's a whole bunch to answer to this, but like there's the development of social language and academic language. And so if your child has all three, developing the social language before they move on to the academic development of those languages, what may show up as looking like a delay in some language. What we find with the research with bilinguals and trilinguals is that they are developing multiple, language skills at once. So it may look like a delay. They do catch up, and it ends up being a huge benefit, in terms of IQ and, in terms of a lot of their skills. So, and I can certainly find an article and send that out because that seems to be of interest to a lot of people. Let's see, we are at time. I just want to say, thank you to all who attended the webinar and asking questions and your comments, as well as to these wonderful parents for sharing their time and their experiences. Really, you are an inspiration to me, and it's why I love my job. Jack?
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for all of your remarks. And, my parents are hearing, and, I look back on the types of early exposure that they had, and having the right involvement, the right people, the right type of resources that they had, that families are able to thrive and help to navigate this journey, and maybe it's, little lefts and little rights and trying to figure out what path you're exactly on. But just watching all of you, I have to say, I look up to you. I'm touched. I see so many different comments in the chat. They're precious. Please read them. It's very touching. There's a lot of people that seem like they're in the same boat, and they have a lot of understanding of the same journey they've been on, and maybe some light bulbs have gone on, and to be just really authentic and open and share with these other parents. So thank you so much for your involvement in the webinar today. A deep, deep debt of gratitude. We hope that this maybe causes some thinking and some ideas. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have more ideas or some areas that you want for expansion, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to be in touch with you. So thanks again for your participation, your great questions and comments. Have a great weekend. Bye, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, the interpreters. Thank you, Spanish interpreter. Thank you, everybody involved. LTB, beautiful job. And she says, thank you, Jack, as well.